Piers Morgan is still trying to defend Fiona Harvey. Obviously, he gave her a platform a few months ago to come out as the real-life Martha, and Richard Gadd, in his most recent email leak and, response to her court proceedings, has said that she is not, in fact, the real-life Martha. But in Piers Morgan's most recent Piers Morgan Uncensored video about the entire situation, he goes on to quote, trying to get the case thrown out, Richard Gadd's testimony on Fiona Harvey. Honestly, when you take a look at this, it is absolute insanity. So, let's watch it together.
If you were cross-examining Richard Gadd, I would say there's plenty to go on here in this document, which would cause him probably quite an uncomfortable few hours in the dock.
Accusing them of a conviction, it might not have been a game changer, so to speak, for you or somebody else who's watching this, but it's a game changer legally to get you to the point where you may be able to get it in front of a jury.
She's entitled to feel aggrieved by the fact Netflix have branded her a convicted criminal to 80 million people. He was a serial, massive drug abuser at the time. I'm not sure how reliable his memory and testimony about that period of his life would be if it was...
Honestly, the fact that Piers Morgan is actually, quite literally attempting to defend her actions is just completely mind-boggling. I just can't get my head around it.
Is officially backing Netflix in its mammoth legal battle with the real-life Martha. Fiona Harvey, the woman who is depicted by Martha in the series, is suing the streaming giant for $170 million for defamation, gross negligence, and violating her right to privacy. Netflix portrayed Martha as a twice-convicted stalker who spends a total of 5 years in jail for her crimes. Infamously, it was billed emphatically as a true story, but it wasn't true. She's never been convicted of any crime that anyone can find any evidence of. Gadd has now filed 21 pages of testimony with the court in California. In it, he says, I was surprised that Harvey appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Although I've only watched certain segments, I understand she claimed that she was the inspiration for the Martha character and that she never sent me thousands of emails nor left me any voicemails. She harassed and stalked me over several years, and since her interview, other individuals have contacted me through my agents and publicists and said they were also harassed by Harvey, but all were too scared of her to come forward. As well as detailing Fiona Harvey's persistent stalking, Gadd says that he, quote, never intended the series to identify any real person as Martha, and that Martha is not Fiona Harvey.
I don't think Martha is Fiona Harvey. I mean, the inspiration might be there, but I think Martha is a far better person than that of Fiona Harvey. After seeing the emails that came forward and the disgusting things that she said, there's no denying, she was highly racist within her emails. She even admitted to being a racist. Doing inappropriate things over pictures of cute little babies. Her words, not mine. These are straight from the source. I mean, how do you defend someone like that? How does Piers Morgan go in front of his millions of fans and say, I defend this woman. I think she deserves to be a bit annoyed about this. No, this is crazy.
Like all characters in the series, he says, Martha is a fictional character with fictional personality traits that are very different than Harvey's. Really? Richard Gadd? Many millions of people saw Fiona Harvey's interview with me and concluded exactly the opposite, not to mention the catalogue of similarities and real-life social media posts that led to her being identified almost immediately as Martha in the first place. As for a fictional character with fictional personality traits, that's not really how true stories work, Richard. And perhaps most importantly, this appears to be a tacit admission that Fiona Harvey was never convicted of any crime, a central pillar of the case. We're joining me to discuss all this, celebrity lawyer Mark Geragos and the host of Popcorn's Planet, Andy Signal. Well, welcome to both of you. So Mark, a fascinating development in what is an ongoing fascinating case. I went through Richard Gadd's full statement here, and there's no doubt that he believes he was treated very, very badly by Fiona Harvey. But there's also no doubt that there's no evidence in his statement that she was ever convicted of a crime. They seem to have abandoned any pretense that she was. Does this really change materially the case at all?
No, not in my opinion. You looked at it from that aspect. I was looking at it, trying and scratching my head, frankly, to try to figure out what the legal strategy was. Because as you pointed out, it seems to be an adoptive admission, if you will, or by implication, that she was not convicted, that on one hand, yes, she was stalking me and she's a problem, but no, she wasn't the inspiration for the. I mean, it's just it does not quite make sense to me. Maybe the law firm has got a strategy that I'm not privy to, or knows some kind of a theory that I haven't thought of. But it's very, very peculiar, Pierce. And I had similarly, coming from a different perspective, the same reaction you did to this.
Yeah, because it seems to me, Mark, that at the centre of his defence is I never intended this to be identified as Fiona Harvey. And yet it's crystal clear from his full statement that this is obviously Fiona Harvey he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a fair point there. You know, it clearly is Fiona Harvey that is being referenced to, but, you know, he can't go out on his legal statement and say, yeah, she's got a fair point there. You know, it was her that was the issue, and that's who Martha was based on, because then it's a case closed, case. But what he has tried to do is paint a full picture of who Fiona Harvey actually is. And the egregious things that she's done and how kind of, you know, batshit crazy she truly is. Because, I mean, no one can defend those emails, surely. If Piers Morgan looks at those emails and is like, but they're irrelevant, they're not irrelevant. They literally paint a perfect picture of the kind of character that she is.
The woman that he had the nightmare experience with, and in the show in which he plays basically himself, albeit giving himself a different name, he details pretty identically the process of stalking and harassment that he was put through by Fiona Harvey. And as we know, within minutes of people watching the actual supposed true story, they tapped in phraseology that was said by Martha, posts that she'd put on social media and so on, and it led directly to her. They didn't even try to hide it. So this idea that this is not Fiona Harvey he's depicting is for the birds, isn't it?
Well, it kind of reminds me of some old vaudeville or stand-up or Catskills jokes where the reaction is, well, it wasn't really her, but if it was her, she's despicable. I mean, it really
right.
is. A lot of times I see this in the law where people take this position, and it's not been a winning strategy in my experience.
Right, and Andy, there's no doubt when you read the full, it's like pages and pages and pages of this statement from Richard Gadd, there's no doubt that she's clearly behaved very badly towards him. There's also no doubt, it seems to me, that he's got plenty of evidential ammunition, which he outlines in quite painstaking detail in terms of emails, texts, voicemails, and so on, which I always suspected because they were so precise about the amount they had. So there's a clear picture being built of a pretty...
He didn't though. Like, only a few weeks ago, when he had Richard Roth on, this is the thing with Piers Morgan, right? I find depending on who's on the panel, depends on how he behaves and who he villainizes, right? Like, Richard Gadd was the worst person on the planet when he had Richard Roth on because, you know, he was like, there's no way he could possibly have all those emails, right? And now he's turning around and saying, oh, yeah, but it was, you know, with how, like, accurate that they were and how they depicted that they always had, you know, the accuracy of the number. They always had that evidence. I never doubted that. You did, though. Like, you just did.
A pleasant troll stroke harasser. Should that mean she shouldn't win any legal case?
Absolutely. I'm kind of shocked how much you guys are defending her. Like, reading
Me
the
too.
whole thing, this woman is exactly what she's portrayed on the show. Okay, she wasn't convicted at the end. That was like the least important part of the show for me. As someone who watched it, she was portrayed as a stalker, as someone who was harassing him, who was assaulting him.
I completely agree. Like, I do feel like the conviction is... It's the minute detail that they can cling on to for a legal battle, right? Because everything else is clearly true. All right, Richard Gadd has thrown the book at them when it comes to emails, voicemails, letters. Like, he's provided all of that evidence. But it was like, but she wasn't convicted. And you said that she was. Though the show does state at the end that, on the final scene, that the events did change for the purpose of dramatization. So, you know, that's kind of a caveat.
All of this stuff is proven in these emails from Richard. It's kind of wild. I can't figure out why you're defending him so much, Pierce. But then I saw she mentions Pierce in these emails, guys. Piers isn't talking about
That's
it.
not
Piers
me.
just explained it.
Yeah, that's not Piers Morgan. If you look at the email, it's I think the email comes back from like 2014, 2015. So it's not Piers Morgan. So this is good. Andy's gonna kind of get humbled a bit here.
It's not me.
You have explaining to do.
It's not me. Funny enough, I saw that, and I saw your tweet suggesting it was actually me. It's not. It's clearly he's got a mate in the pub, also called Piers.
It's not you. All right, you can
for
confirm that's not
for
you.
the record,
the great app.
For the record, it's not me. No, it is not me. But you see, I don't think that either me or Marcus.
Compliment your bum, Piers?
She probably would if she'd ever seen it. But she didn't, for the record. And nor has she ever bothered to contact me since the interview, by the way. So it's interesting to me. I mean, you think that Mark and I are defending her. I wouldn't categorize it as defending her, but I do think that she has legitimate legal...
Andy, I don't...
Yeah.
You are, though.
Yeah,
I guess
I would call
legally,
this
yeah,
a
they put up,
defending...
it's a true story. Legally, that's where she could win some money. I think it's frustrating because no Hollywood story is a true story. Every celebrity story takes liberties. I'll be interested to see what actually happens in the law. I get the argument, but I when I read it all and I looked at everything, I was more disturbed. He breaks down a lot of issues and talks about the emotional turmoil and stuff. And to me, that was really the pillar of the show, Piers, not the conviction. You guys keep talking about the conviction. She also falsely says that she was assaulted. He makes the claim that she did in the bar multiple times. Seems to imply there's several witnesses in that bar who can attest to it. There's witnesses at the shows that she denied going to. There's a lot of lies she's been peddling. So in the eyes of what's true and what's not, I think all this proof is only going to help his case to me.
Yeah, but my question is, but did you have any doubt that she was the inspiration for the character?
I mean, reading these emails, now I'm positive. Seeing the emails and all the typos, it's quite clear.
Right,
but
that's what I mean.
The only reason we figured that out for me was because he wrote "to hang your curtains" on Twitter. She wrote that. He wrote that. That's a very specific phrase. And that.
Yeah, before the show, I'd never heard anyone use the term "hang your curtains." There's no denying that, like, you know, she was definitely the inspiration. But like I say, he was never going to go into this lawsuit and file his response and say, yeah, she was definitely the inspiration, because then it's like, right, game on. You know, if he denies it, there could be a bit of pushback. They could try and get it thrown out, which is exactly what Netflix are going to want. They're not going to want to pay out of court. They're not going to want to settle out of court. They've already said that they're going to defend it to the hilt. So let's just see what happens.
That's what connected everybody to her. He probably should have rephrased it, I guess. So I understand that legal argument, but I don't know. So he's supposed to censor the truth to this woman who harassed him his whole life and really caused this true story to happen. But now he can't use certain liberties.
But hang on. Yeah, but hang on, Andy. What you're doing, you're accusing Mark and I of defending you. We're not. We're pointing out that she may have a legitimate legal case because she was never convicted of any crime. And they've called her a convicted criminal twice. They say she was convicted of separate stalking offences, and that she broke down in court and wept and admitted the second one with Richard Gadd. None of that happened. So from a pure legal point of view, she clearly has, I think, a very strong case.
Yeah, but Netflix also caveated that, and they put in the end saying all of these, some details have been changed for dramatic purposes. They'll just turn around and be like, well, the disclaimer was there. And we did turn around and do that, and they can use the argument, well, Donnie, the fictional character, wrote that disclaimer at the start saying this is a true story, because it's kind of a full circle moment to like link the end to the start, where the end being where he sat down at his computer, he's about to write out the the timeline for the police and all the incidents that took place, and then the full circle moment is where he starts to write the script for Baby Reindeer and starts off with this is a true story. We hear typing, it could just be Donnie's character writing that, which of course is a fictional character, meaning that it's a fictional true story, which is a bit of a minefield, and it's a bit of a, they're gonna have to really fight that to make that stick in court, but it could work.
I also think that Richard Gadd is being... it's not I don't have sympathy for him. I do. I've had stalkers. It's a very uncomfortable, uneasy thing to experience. Most people in the public eye have had some form of obsessive fan stroke stalker, whatever it may be, and it's not pleasant at all. However, that doesn't mean that the person harassing you or bothering you or being a nuisance is a criminal. And the problem I had with the Fiona Harvey thing, if you read all the details, it's kind of riveting to read his statement. It's a lot of he said, against what she said. Some of it he's produced evidence from messages, okay, but we don't see what he was saying to her. He admits that he led her on. He's admitted that for real. He admits it in the true story, which we saw on Netflix. The character in there admits leading her on, and that's what she says he did. So was there some kind of relationship? There's a very weird moment depicted in the series where he is pleasuring himself to pictures of her on a computer, right? That's not normal behavior from the victim of a stalker. So I think there's lots of stuff here where I have a lot of unanswered questions, and I would love to ask, I mean, Mark, if you were cross-examining Richard Gadd, I would say there's plenty to go on here in this document, which would cause him probably quite an uncomfortable few hours in the dock.
Well, we have to understand what's happening here. They are legally positioning themselves to try to get the case thrown out. I remember when you talk, or Andy talks about, the ultimate kind of decision, about how do you view her. That's kind of a jury decision. What's happening here is whether they ever get to a jury. So understand against that legal backdrop. And the idea of this skirmishing, if you will, was it her? Did I intend it to be her? Did we accuse her of having convictions or not conviction? All of that is in terms of trying to get the case thrown out on a motion to dismiss. That is a completely separate analysis from if she survives these legal skirmishes, and does she get in front of a jury to present her case, and is she somebody that a jury is going to say, yeah, I want to vote for her, I want to give her a boatload of money. That's a completely different argument.
The argument should be, does this person deserve to go in front of a jury at the end of the day? Do you know what I mean? Like, does someone who, from those emails, I'm not going to base it off of the show, I'm going to base it off of factual evidence now, based off of Fiona Harvey specifically, not Martha, not what we believe to be Fiona Harvey, actual Fiona Harvey, based off of the emails that Richard Gadd provided, right? Does she deserve to go to court over this? No. Let's be real. Does Richard Gadd deserve the success that he got? Some would say no as well, because he enhanced the behaviour. I'm not a Richard Gadd fanboy, alright? I actually truly... At the end of the day, I'm not bothered about who wins or loses. I'm just here for the ride. But, on a moral level, do I think that Fiona Harvey deserves to have this case taken to court, and does she deserve to have the opportunity to win £130 million? No, not at all. Because of the disgusting behaviour shown within the emails and the voicemails and the letters, someone like that can become very, very dangerous with a lot of money, because with money comes influence and power. I don't think she deserves that. Unless she goes and hobbits away and just disappears forever and decides to throw the stalking life away. But I think it's a little bit more compulsive than just giving up that lifestyle. You're not like a career thief where you can just give it up and go and into the shadows and just live your life out with your riches. No, it's not like that. It's a lot more mentally ingrained within you, from the sounds of it, based off of the amount of victims that there have been, and based off of the similar experiences that all of these victims have, experienced. So, do I think she deserves to get that far? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, part of the problem, again, from the filing, Gadd says that Baby Reindeer is a, quote, fictionalized retelling of my emotional journey through several extremely traumatic real experiences. But that's not what they call it. They don't call it a fictionalized retelling. They literally start by saying, this is a true story. There's no equivocation, there's no nuance, there's no subtlety, there's nothing. It just says, this is a true story. But
the argument, again, I'm not going to go over it because I've already could be that is the writing of Donnie, which again would make it a fictional true story, because it would be like that full circle moment where the fictional character is writing the start of the script.
And the problem they have,
Bohemian
seems
Rhapsody
to me,
is called a true story. There's countless Hollywood movies that are called true stories. I just feel like we're smarter than that, for one. Two, it does say at the end of the credits, like most movies, some liberties are made. But I agree with you. They could have phrased it better. I'm not going to deny that. It is also a little it's a little my truth sounding versus the truth when he writes his sort of emotional truth. But at the same time, reading it all in context and watching the show, I would still push back. are the convictions really what's defaming her? Because I don't believe people even made it that far to think that's what the problem with Martha was.
Okay,
the
but
problem with Martha was
Andy,
everything that led up to it.
Yeah, but Andy, here's where I don't agree with you, you see. There are lots of trolls in the world, right? I get trolled all day long on social media. But if I started calling them all convicted, but if I started calling them all convicted criminals, I'd have a serious legal problem. Calling somebody a convicted criminal.
But the issue that Fiona Harvey has allegedly got is that there is loss of earnings and loss of credibility. There are so many points that lead up to the conviction scene that would probably defame or, lose her credibility, right? I mean, she's claiming that she's lost job opportunities over this and all the rest of it. She didn't have to come forward. First of all, she didn't have to say, yes, I categorically absolutely am Martha. Fiona Harvey, I am Martha. She didn't have to do that. She chose to do that. Her and Piers Morgan would argue that, well, she was forced to do it. Piers Morgan, of course, is going to say she was forced to do it. She was forced to come on my show because he's got 14 million views off the back of it and a bankload of money off the back of it. He is incredibly happy that she's done that. And it's just insane to me that this is the opportunity where someone who is proven to clearly have a level of it is stalking, regardless of whether it's convicted or proven in court, it's stalking, and just a racist person as well, openly states that she is a racist person, pleasuring herself over cute baby pics. That's literally pulled straight out of the emails, people. That's not me making that up or paraphrasing, literally word for word. That's messed up, and to the point where that person could potentially win millions of pounds.
Well, Ray would call it a trolling. I think you're being a little.
You make it sound like a. You make it sound like a light thing. 80 million people plus have now watched this series. They're all aware that it's based on Fiona Harvey.
Because she came forward herself. She didn't have to. This is the issue.
They clearly made no real
her activity, her real life actions.
Yeah,
sure. I'm not denying for a moment
some accountability for those real actions.
Sure.
I don't think it's
of
trolling.
course she's not.
Stalking and harassing to me is worse than trolling.
Well, okay, but stalking is that. But hang on, stalking is.
I'm Team Andy here. I am Team Andy all the way.
It's actually a crime, right? So has she committed a crime?
So it's harassing.
There is no evidence she has.
But harassing is a crime. It can be as well, Mark. Correct?
Accusing. No, yes, but absolutely. But remember, the one thing you've got to remember is they're going to navigate. There's free speech arguments here. There's going to be all kinds of potentially anti-slap type arguments here. Calling somebody a conviction, or accusing them of a conviction, that raises the stakes for the presumption on her behalf to survive to get this case to a jury. So that is why it's important. It might not have been a game changer, so to speak, for you or somebody else who's watching this, but it's a game changer legally to get you to the point where you may be able to get it in front of a jury.
Well, and I can't deny that. Plus, it didn't help when the head of Netflix said to Parliament she's a convicted stalker. I hear you both. Right. It is a problem. At the same time, when you read those things about, I'm looking at the sort of some of these things on, so pardon looking at the screen, but the stuff he's saying about his family, how she's like finding his yummy mummy on Twitter and looking her up, and then I'm gonna find her. Like, this isn't trolling, Piers. This is like a serious psychopathic.
No, listen, Andy, let me.
I don't want to downplay it as trolling. That just, to me, it's not trolling.
Okay.
Yeah, trolling is, lightheartedly kind of poking fun at someone at their own expense. That's trolling. Or, sometimes trolling can go a little bit further and be a bit more about the person's looks, personality, whatever, that may not necessarily be true. To kind of go to the level of, I'm going to find your mum, or, talking about stuff like that, That's not trolling, and I agree with Andy wholeheartedly. Again, I'm wholeheartedly Team Andy right here.
Okay, listen. I've also interviewed Laura Ray, who was the Scottish lawyer, who also was harassed by Fiona Harvey. And it was clearly, A, I believed every word she told me. B, it was very unpleasant, the harassment she and her family. Her husband was a member of Parliament. He got terribly harassed by her as well. And actually, George Galloway, who's a quite famous British politician, he said he was watching that interview when he suddenly realised, in conjunction with the other one, because he knew Laura Ray, the lawyer, and he watched the interview with Fiona Harvey that I did, and he realised it was the same woman who'd harassed him. So there's no doubt she's had a history of harassing people, and I believe the people when they say they've been harassed, including Richard Gadd. It would also stick in my claw, I think, like most people, if she was to end up getting millions of dollars from Netflix. But that would be, in my opinion, not her fault. It would be Netflix's fault for allowing this to be portrayed in their own words as a true story, and then simply inventing the fact that this woman, who was not in the public eye, who was not well known to anybody outside the few people who knew her, that she has now been depicted to 80 million people as not only a convicted criminal, but somebody who admitted her crime in court, burst into tears, and admitted everything she'd done, when she doesn't at all, by the way. If she was in this panel now, she'd be contradicting almost everything we're saying and saying, I don't agree to that, I don't agree to that, I don't agree to that. So a lot of this is contested. And just to remind you, Andy, I mean, Richard Gadd, I don't know about how reliable a witness he'd be in court, but by his own admission again, and as he portrays himself in the series, he was a serial massive drug abuser at the time. He was pretty much a sex addict, having sex with anyone that moved, male, female, transgender. I'm not sure how reliable his memory and testimony about that period of his life would be if it was put under the real microscope of a legal battle. So I don't defend Fiona Harvey. It would be wrong, in my opinion, if she walks away with millions of dollars. But I do defend the fact that she's entitled to feel aggrieved by the fact Netflix have branded her a convicted criminal to 80 million people, when she's not.
Well,
but I feel like she's worse than that based off of these emails. Do you know what I mean? Like, Martha was a convicted criminal, but what Fiona Harvey was, based off of these emails that we've had, I feel like it's just so much worse.
He did say in his own document that he doesn't think either of them are victims. He tried to downplay his own involvement. He does try to do that. I agree with you, and I agree with you. But the question I had for Mark is, if Netflix had just said based on a true story, would this have all been thrown out? Is it really that simple of a semantic? Could they have solved the problem if they hadn't been so definitive in this is a true story?
I think that when we originally did this program with Piers, you and I were on the panel, I'm still litigating right now on various matters with Netflix. The thing that has always puzzled me, because they've got a robust in-house and outside counsel that they use, I've always been puzzled by that. I do not understand. These are guys who probably sit there and bill away 6 hours looking at the wording of various things, and I don't understand how we arrived at this point. I really don't. It's inexplicable to me.
And there is a suggestion, which is not in his testimony, but there is a suggestion which the Sunday Times in the UK reported recently, that Richard Gadd did say to Netflix, don't call it a true story.
Yeah, this is true. This might sway against Netflix in the legal battle,
because it is a fictionalized account of my experiences, and that Netflix overrode him and said, no, we're calling it a true story. Now, maybe Netflix, Andy, never imagined in a million years how big this would get or how popular it would get. And then we may not have been having this panel or any of the fallout that came. But the fact is, it became a massive hit because, by the way, it was a bloody good series. And Richard Gadd's an incredibly talented guy who I think, is having a great wave of success and thoroughly deserves it. But that doesn't change. None of this changes the fact that they may well end up in a position where Netflix has to give a massive check to Fiona Harvey for defaming her.
And default.
But yes, technically they did defame her. On a technicality, defame her. But did they? Because I feel like she just defamed herself, but because of this minor technicality, she might walk away with millions. And this is what is so broken about the system. We're going to override the fact that she literally harassed Richard Gadd for years. Sent racist remarks about people, you know, talking about beheadings and things like this and utterly horrific things, all for the sake of one technicality. And that person who harassed someone for years is going to be like, oh, I'm upset because that's not gone my way. I don't like looking like that, so I'm going to take your millions. No, it just doesn't sit right with me. And I don't know, like, everyone's entitled to a fair trial without a doubt. And yes, technically, she wasn't a convicted criminal, but at the same time, does that override the experiences of many people? George Galloway, Laura Ray, and Jimmy Ray, Richard Gadd, Heather Burns. Who else have we had recently as well? Many other people. Sakia Starmer, for example, as well. Does it override what they experienced to the point where she will become financially more, you know, up there than potentially even them? I feel like that's a very backwards way for things to work.
Come around fully, she did write a lot of it. So should she actually get some of that revenue that's been coming in? And it wouldn't have been as popular without her involvement and the things that he took, the curtains and stuff. Any other person who would write that, WGA rules would get a piece of the script at least. So I guess that's one way for people who hate her to get justified with if she gets paid. But I just don't want to sit here and I'm glad we all came around. I don't want to defend her and try to, she's wronged. I think this proves, if all these emails are correct, she did wrong. I think he's admitted he's done wrong. And at the end of the day, I'm frustrated that she's been a victim in all of this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if anybody did that, it's Netflix's fault. They should have been smarter.
Mark?
I don't think there was anybody who watched her interview with Piers who believed for a second when she was hesitating and trying to dance around Piers asking her about the number of emails and whether she had written that many. Look, she's not.
That's the thing. She lied through her back teeth about all of it, and now all the evidence is out there, and it's come back to bite her on the arse, and she's upset about it. Like, come on, man.
If you take one look at her, she did not come off well in terms of what she was saying during that interview with Piers. But that having been said, that's still, there are certain rules, and the rules are you don't get to just call somebody a convicted felon or imply that they're, and in this case, say they're a convicted felon with impunity.
But legally, would that have happened if she hadn't come on Piers? Like, didn't she do that to herself in a way?
Yes.
Well, no, because by then she'd already been properly identified all over social media.
But she hadn't. Well, she had, but she hadn't. Like, it was like people were speculative at that point. Nothing had been confirmed or denied. She, coming forward, confirmed everyone's suspicions. You know, because it could have just stayed as speculation. And by this point, it all would have drowned out. She could have turned around if some future employer, like she says, that, you know, people have taken away job opportunities or something. Future employer said to her, oh, weren't you the inspiration for that Martha? She could have just gone, no. People thought I was. Don't know why. And then they'd be like, oh, okay then. Carrying on. Oh, you got the job, whatever. You know, like, because she confirmed it, it meant that everyone then was like, ah, so you are that person. You've confirmed our suspicions. Whereas it could have just stayed as speculation.
Yeah, the media have been calling it, morning, noon, and night. So the cat was out the bag. Just finally, Mark, we're running out of time, but just very quickly, what's your prediction as to how this ends up?
I've always thought this would be a business solution. That means money is going to change hands, and it will change hands after they rule on the motion to dismiss. This case is not going to, we're never going to see a jury on this case.
Mark, Andy, great to talk to you.
There you go. So I do still feel like, to a degree, Piers Morgan is defending her. Not defending her in the sense of, you know, like defending her character, but still kind of like, what? There's no level of accountability being held against her. It's like, yeah, but still, that's besides the point. We're going to push all of that to the side because that's irrelevant to the case. No, it should be at the forefront of the case, if anything. You know, the character, you know, witnesses and all the rest of it should be brought to the forefront. What do you guys think, though? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new to become a little bit so you get notified whenever we upload to the channel. Until next time, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed. Cannot wait to see you in the next one, and I'll speak to you later. Peace.